All right, so here's what we're doing, and we wanted to do this in a larger group, but we were just running out of time to do it, and everybody's busy on the weekends, so we decided to do this with this. So I thank you guys very, very much for coming in here and helping us do this. So any questions you have along the way, ask, and then we'll have some questions at the end as well. So we're going to try to touch on a lot of different things that are common things people ask about, as I've done this a few times, but we'll start with this. Okay, this is a volleyball player here that I met at Otterbein, and she's on our mentorship program, and she's told a really cool story about her job search process. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this idea that sport will give you more than you can give it. There was an author who wrote a book about soccer, and he said soccer will give you more than you can give it, but in general, sport really can. It teaches you a lot about teamwork, pressure, responsibility, life balance, stress relief, exercise, and how important it is. So there's a lot of really important things. So sometimes people ask, I don't know if I want to play in college. I highly suggest that you do. Okay, employers and people that are bringing people into grad schools are going to look for people that can do all these things. Okay, so it's really important. And what Lindsay did is she was in a job interview, and she shared that it just wasn't going very well. And she said she was interviewing in front of about 8 people or so. She said people were starting to lose interest and their heads were going down. They weren't really paying attention. And then it came out that she played volleyball, and she was an All-American volleyball player. And I was saying, first of all, that should have been probably at the top of her resume, because that's really important. And she said as soon as it came out that she played volleyball, she said people in the room literally sat up and all of a sudden were very interested in what she had to say. And it turned the entire interview around, and she ended up getting the job. So it was a really cool moment and a really cool story. That said, if people say, I do want to play, there's a program for everyone. There's 441 Division III women's teams alone. So when you take D1, D2, D3, and NAI schools, there's 1,200 schools. So there's a program for everybody. Okay. This is something that Jay Martin up at Ohio Wesleyan put together a few years ago, and I've always liked the way he did it, so I modified it a little bit. Right now, there are 476,000 boys and 408,000 girls playing soccer in high school across the country, right? So about 95,000 of those boys are seniors. About 82,000 of the seniors are girls or seniors, okay? A lot of these pictures are players that played in our club. Sometimes they're players that myself or Eric or other directors and other coaches in the club coached. But when you look at those college programs, Division I, there are 205 men and 338 women's programs. Division II, you can see 210 and 262. As I said, there's 441 Division III women's teams and 421 on the men's side. NAIA have over 200 teams on either side. Okay, so if you consider that, it's 1,040 men's teams and over 1,200 women's teams. So if we just say each team needs 8 players, that leaves about 8,320 spaces for those 95,000 senior boys. It's about 10,000 spaces for those 82,000 senior girls. Okay, now not everybody plays. So the players that want to and are the most committed or are the best at it are going to be the ones that want to go on. Okay. Scholarships, Division I men have 9.9 scholarships. Division I women have 14. When you go to Division II, it's a little less at 9 and 9.9. And what that means is how many scholarships they have at any given time. That's not per year. So on a Division I women's team, if they're fully funded for that, they have 14 players on full scholarships. But it's rare to have a full scholarship. They're much more likely to have 20-some players on the team that have a half scholarship or some players that have partial scholarships. It's actually pretty rare. I think a lot of times you hear that a friend of yours has a scholarship to play somewhere, and in doing so, we think, oh, it's a full scholarship. I know players that have scholarships that are $300 just to help with their books. But they'll say, I have a Division I scholarship. So it is a wide range from something as small as that all the way up to full scholarships. Okay. So when you look at those numbers and we say that that's for the entire time, that's not per year, then that really means like a D1 men's team has about 2.4 scholarships to give every year while they're recruiting. D1 women might have 3.5 or so. D2 women might have 2.5. Okay, so it really just kind of means if we're giving out full scholarships, only 2.2% of seniors get those scholarships. Okay, so a lot of times when people are like, how do I get a scholarship? How do I get a scholarship? I really want you to focus on your grades. If you want to get a scholarship in college, the best way to do it is keep your grades up. Okay, there are a number of different ways to look into financial aid. There are merit-based scholarships, scholarships from outside sources. You get grants. Grants are things you don't have to pay back. There are a number of different grants that are given every year at every school. Then you have a need-based financial aid, and we'll talk about that here in a second. That need-based financial aid is going to be based on how much income your family has. You can take out loans, and then work study. You can work on campus. And a lot of times those are minimum wage jobs, and they're very few hours, but they're very convenient because they're on campus. Okay. FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, and most families are going to fill that out. What that does is it takes your family's prior year income. Some schools will take the year prior to that, so we'll call it the prior year, okay? And they're going to see how much your income is, and the government's going to decide how much your estimated family contribution should be. And then schools are going to decide how much of that they want to fund. Some schools fund that fully, some just try to get close to it. But you'll go to fafsa.ed.gov. You can find out information at studentaid.ed there as well. And those kind of things, that's going to be where you start to fill that information out. A lot of schools have estimators as well. You can go online and just get an estimate of what you're going to spend to go to that school. And it's really important that you're honest on those, because that is just for your information. But when you fill out the real one for a school, it is going to take everything into account. So if you do an estimator and you don't account for a large fund that your family has in the bank, and you think, wow, this is going to be great, this will be super affordable. When you do the actual aid form, you're going to have to include that, and that's going to change that number. So just make sure your family is very honest on the estimators. Estimators in most schools are getting really good. They're actually getting much, much closer to what you'll end up. And you should understand, schools give away millions of dollars every year in aid. So sometimes those smaller school numbers can be scary, or the whole idea of college and the price of it can be really scary, but very few people actually pay those bottom line numbers, okay? When you think about your preparation, you should say, and this is sometimes when I do this presentation, there are a lot of parents in the room, and they'll say, people come to me and say, how does my kid earn a scholarship? I'm telling you, it's academics. And even if your grades are lower, maybe you have a rough freshman year, or you have a rough sophomore year, okay? You're going through some stuff, or just the transition to high school, whatever it is, just show an improvement. If you're showing an improvement and going the right direction, a lot of schools will take that into consideration. It's really important that you're going in the right direction, okay? You want to register, if you're going to play Division I or Division II soccer, you want to register with a National Eligibility Center, okay? And then those are things that I can click on here, and you'll see this when we are done with this. I'm going to put this presentation together. I'm going to put these slides in it, so you'll be able to pause it during that moment too. So you don't have to worry about getting those web addresses. But you do want to register with the National Eligibility Center. You're going to do that for D1 and D2. If you're going to an NAIA school, it's a slightly different eligibility center, okay? Division III schools don't participate in that program, okay? When you start to make a list about the schools you want to go, that's Coach Josh from our club right there, back in his college playing days. So you want to start to make a list and just ask yourselves, what do I want to study? And you may not know that. A lot of people will change their major in school. A lot of people will go in. I know at the school I'm at right now, our 6th biggest major is undecided. Okay, so it's not uncommon for people to come in undecided and not know what they want to do or change along the way. But think about what you're good at and what do you enjoy. I had really good advice that was given to me a few years ago from a coach that just said, Brandon, do what makes you happy and do what you enjoy, and you will find a way to make a living doing it. I really didn't know I could make a living in coaching, and here I am doing that. So think about what you're good at and what you enjoy. I want you to ask yourself, do you want to be in a big city, or do you want to be in a small college town? Do you want to be in a school that has there are schools that have less than 1,000 students. Are you looking at a small school, 3,000, 4,000 students, or are you looking at big schools? Ohio State's been over 50,000. I'm not sure where they are right now, but it could be well over that at times. Okay. Proximity to home. How close do you want to be to home? Some people say I have a 2-hour rule. Some have a 3-hour rule. We're centrally located in Ohio. Some people say I want to stay in Ohio. Some people say I want to be able to drive it. For some people that's 3 hours. For some people that's 8 hours. So it's different for you. Some people say I want to get far away. Some people say I want to be at a school where I have to take a plane ride to get home. So, and you have to think about whether or not you're going to play soccer and how important that is to you and at what level you want to do that. So those are really important lists to make. When you do that, you can then find some things online. You can start to look for what is the best nursing school, or what is the best school for business, what is that? What is the best school in this area for soccer? What's the best Division II school in this region for soccer? Whatever it might be. And then you have a couple sites like that collegefitfinder.com. You go in and you fill out some parameters. I want to spend around this much. I want to be able to, I want to be close to a big city, but a little bit reserved from that. I want to be this many miles from home. I want to make sure these majors and that kind of thing. And you'll fill these out, and then it will create a list for you of however many schools fall inside those parameters. So when you're thinking, man, there's 1,200 or so universities, I don't know where to start. You can get a list down pretty low by finding exactly what you want, what you need. So look online for those kind of things. Sometimes there's a fee to get into it a little deeper. Most of them have a base level of it where you can just do it for free. Okay. When you're thinking about NAIA schools or NCAA Division I, II, or III, one of the best places to start is the Guide for College-Bound Student Athletes. And that you can find online at these, like I said, at that web address, but I'll put this up here. We'll put this online. You can go to ncaa.org and get to it through there, naia.org and get to it through there. And what this is going to do is it's going to keep you up to date on rules, guidelines, timelines, and that kind of stuff. I'm telling you, I've been coaching, this will be my 23rd year in the fall, and I don't know all the rules. It's impossible. The rules change all the time. When we began to be allowed to text players a few years ago, it was a recruit that told me the rule had changed. They change so rapidly at times, it's difficult to keep up with it. And it's really difficult to know the differences between D1 and D2 and D3 and NAIA. So having access to that, and it's a free guide you can find online. It's probably 75, 80 pages or so. And you can flip through it and keep up on some things. That's what the cover looks like this year. That guide for the college-bound student athlete this year. And it has some cool pages. This is one of the things that's really helpful. You can go in there right now and see, in 9th grade, this is what I should be doing. In 10th grade, this is what I should be doing. When I'm a junior, this is what I should be doing. When I'm a senior, this is what I should be doing. And it's a great timeline to follow to keep on track. Okay. You can also find things in here that just talk about some of the rules. And these change all the time. You can see when can I have, this is Division I soccer. When can I make phone calls to a coach? When can a coach call me? When can I have off-campus contact? When can I have an unofficial or an official visit? So like I said, if I were to tell you this all today and you wrote and took great notes, like we're all going to forget it, but having access to it in this book, for the most part, you should assume that the coach that's recruiting you knows the rules. Don't ever take a situation where you're reaching out to a coach and they're not calling you back and you're thinking, oh my gosh, they're not interested. They just may not be allowed to call you yet, okay? My advice to everyone is be proactive and reach out and try and try and try. And if somebody reaches out back to you and says, look, we're not interested, then you should probably stop. But other than that, just keep going. There are times I've missed information from recruits because they'll write to me right before a big showcase. And then all of a sudden, my email got backed up and I just didn't see it. So if you're interested, keep going, keep trying. Okay. There are some ideas for Division II and Division III about telephone calls and off-campus contact and visits, official and unofficial. Okay. That's all in that guide. To give you an idea, this is a pretty common recruiting software app. And right now, I just said, just to give you an idea how many students we are in contact with, that's my number right now. I have 365 recruits in our database right now. Okay, and that's seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. So there's a ton of information out there, and I really want you guys to find a way to separate yourself. There's a few things I would do and I would say to separate yourself, and we'll talk about them here in a moment. Okay. Sometimes people take advantage of services like this, and this was off the top of my head some of the services that are out there. Okay, but what becomes really difficult sometimes is each of these have avenues for you to communicate with college coaches. But I can tell you as a college coach, if I don't go on to one of those and look at the messages that were sent to me, I never see them. And I can tell you now, I don't have time to go check all those sites. So a lot of times recruits believe that they're getting in touch with coaches, and a lot of coaches don't even know that information those students are trying to get to them. These are services that will create a resume type form for you, a profile for you. These are services sometimes that will include video for you. These can be $1,000, $2,000 for these services. Some of them are helpful, but I promise you, you can do the things they're doing. You can create resumes and profiles, and you can create videos, and you can reach out to schools. So if you're proactive, and as a college coach, to be honest with you, I want to hear from you. I don't want to think that someone is out there just throwing out a line and hoping to get a bite. I want to know that someone is interested in my school, okay? So when you look at profiles, this is a pretty good idea one, okay? And I blocked out as much as I could so you don't know who this is. I actually don't even remember who this is. It was a couple years ago. But you want to see that information. What position do they play? What is their number? What class are they in? I don't need birth dates so much, but club teams and high school teams and coaches information there. This is all in one page, okay? What are your team accomplishments? Some individual notes. How are you doing academically? Being able to put that in one page where I don't have to scroll through things or flip through pages, that's super helpful. When you put a photograph on something, make sure that you understand a photograph of you doesn't mean it's a good photograph to put on a resume. I have seen players put something there, and I like that because I can put a face to a name. But I've seen players put pictures on there that show terrible form, and someone that struck a ball, and you can see that they didn't lock their ankle when they struck it. And there's a little bit of like, that's not great form, but also there's not a recognition that that's not great form. So just be aware. And when we talk about video, it's the same thing. Just because you're on video doesn't mean it's a great highlight to put on there. Just because it's a picture of you doesn't mean it's the right picture for that, okay? This is what's written in yellow there are my own notes. And this is the first and only message I received from this athlete. And when you look at it, there are a couple things on there that are on there twice. There's this like height, weight, mile time, that kind of stuff. Right there's height, weight. I don't really need that to begin with. But there's, in this short amount of information, some things are repeated. These are gaps. I didn't cover that. They actually don't have that information on there, okay? And when I clicked on the play video, it didn't play a video. So this is very little information. And when I'm getting information, like I told you, I have 365 recruits in that one piece of software. You don't want to stand out in a bad way, okay? When you think about emails and letters, this is one of my favorites. This is a good kid. This is a great player. I coached her older sister. It was fun when we were recruiting her. You can see this is all on one page. Little bullet points about things. She doesn't go too into depth, but this tells what I need to do. And she makes this important distinction right here. I zoomed in on it here. She makes this important distinction. She said, my older sister played for you a few years ago. And that's huge because this is not someone just sending information. This is someone that has a connection to our program and our school. So that perks my interest. I really get excited about that kind of stuff. So there's a schedule of upcoming events, and you can see the field that they're on and the time and the date. Sometimes people don't put the field they're on, and that can be difficult. When I go to a college showcase, it's not uncommon for me to try to see 25 or 30 players in a weekend. If I don't have your field number, I don't have the right time, or you forget to put that information on there, that might be, and it's not because I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go. It's just, if I have to go too hard searching for that information, it's sometimes easier just to try to catch someone at a later time. I like that one. She did a really good job of that. Tell me what's wrong with this one. You guys are going to speak out loud. Tell me what's wrong with this one.
Their parent wrote it.
Right.
Yeah.
You can see it right there in the first couple words. I want to hear from you. Guys, I've had horror stories of players who didn't want to play, and their parents wanted them to do something, so their parents were pushing it. I actually had a player a few years ago who asked me to cut her from the team because she had been trying to quit playing soccer for years and her parents wouldn't let her. So I actually had to cut a very good player, and I can tell you her parents hate me, but it was a secret between her and I. I never would have cut this player, but she asked to be let go so she wouldn't have to play anymore because she just didn't want to play anymore. So I want to hear from players. I want to know that you're interested. Okay, what's wrong with this one?
They spelled thanks wrong.
So there's so little information right there. Yeah, they made high school one word. I still, to this day...
Thankles.
Yeah, I say thankles to people. There's a couple of assistant coaches I have from that era, and when I see them, I go thankles. But I just wanted more info on the team. Like, this is a great way for someone to go, man, this to me looks like a player that was told by their parents, you've got to start reaching out to coaches. Go do this. This doesn't look like someone that's really interested to me. Okay? What's wrong with that one?
There's a blank for your name.
They just copy and pasted it to everybody.
And the truth is I actually understand that. I have to copy and paste. I can't write to all those kids. I can't write a separate letter to everyone. But what will happen sometimes, when I see that, it doesn't bother me because I know what they're doing and they're trying, and the other information's pretty good. I will sometimes write to players and just say, hey, just so you know, other coaches will cross you off their list. Other coaches will throw that away. Won't even look at it. What's wrong with that one?
Giant
Oh my
email.
gosh.
They're all in there.
So many.
So
They didn't even hide it.
yeah, didn't even hide it. You guys wouldn't like it if I wrote to you and 30 other people and just said, let's see who writes back. You want to feel that there's something, that we're interested in you, not just random players, okay? That is a huge mistake. I will write to players and I'll say, hey, just so you know, this is not a great idea, okay? Where other coaches will just cross you off their list and just never reply. I actually saw a coach one time hit reply to all and mock that player pretty hard, and it was, I felt bad. I felt really bad for it. Coaches hate that. Don't do that, okay? The first thing I do when you write to me, if you don't have a link in there, a link to video, I want to know what we can about you. I'm going to read the letter. I'm going to read that profile, and I'm going straight to your social media. It's the first thing I do. If you have an account where you don't have a lot of stuff on there, I sometimes will think they probably have an account where all the stuff they don't want other people to see is. Sometimes I just think maybe they just don't post a lot of stuff. Some people have accounts where they are just really watching other people's accounts, and that's fine. I think that your account should be private. I think it's the safest thing for you guys to do, especially as young women. But understand that coaches are going to ask you to friend you or to follow you online, okay? So when you're doing it, make sure, and I asked this player, one of our players, and I asked her if she was okay. I always kind of liked what she was doing on social media when we were recruiting her. Everything on there is positive. There's no trouble. I want you to avoid those negatives. Obviously, you shouldn't have foul language, and you shouldn't be, I shouldn't see alcohol and that kind of stuff on your social media sites. But more importantly, it should go on the positive side. You can actually promote yourself really well. You should be showing, if you're volunteering for things, if you're doing charity work. I have a lot of recruits, I look on their social media site and I don't see soccer. And that's weird to me as a college coach, and it makes me wonder how passionate they are about the sport and whether, how much they're really going to give when they come here. So I want to see soccer on there, and I want to see positive things. So I thought she did a pretty good job on her social media. Yeah,
I have a question real quick about that.
Yeah,
So should I've seen other girls make separate accounts for soccer. Would that benefit us, or would that be smarter?
So imagine that we have 1,200 women's coaches across the country. Everyone's going to say something a little bit different to that, okay? I like it. I think that's cool. There's a little bit of me that checks social media because I want to make sure people aren't putting things on there they shouldn't put on there, because that tells me a lot. But that's just me. So I'd be a little bit disappointed that I didn't get to see what are they posting all the time. But I also like the fact that I can go in and follow their soccer stuff, and I think it's a good positive thing. So I would probably say it's a little hit and miss that some coaches, you may have coaches, I know employers right now are asking people in interviews to jump on social media right there in front of them in an interview. So I know people want to see everything that you're putting online sometimes, but I like that. I like that idea. If you had a soccer specific site, I think it'd be cool. Some other coach may ask you, can I see the other side too? Because they want to make sure that you're not causing trouble. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Good.
thank you.
Your behavior on the field is massively important to me, okay? I'm going to be honest with you. If I watch you and I go to a game and you're being recruited and I watch you win 4-0, it's boring to me. Everybody has fun when you're winning 4-0. Everything is easy when you're winning 4-0. Everything is simple. I actually want to see what you're doing when you're losing 3-0. I want to see what you do when you make mistakes. I hope the referee's not good when I show up, because I want to see how you deal with a bad referee. I want to see how you deal with difficult teammates. You might have players on your team that you don't like the way they speak to you. In front of a college coach, it's a wonderful opportunity to show that you can get on with the game and take the message and not let it bother you. I want to see how you take coaching points. I've been recruiting kids that get a point from their coach and they receive it horribly. And that really goes a long way with me, especially when it's a good coaching point. Thank yous for me are massively important. I went to recruit a girl one day, and as I walked up to the field, the ball in her game went out of bounds. And it went off the field, and it went into a little wooded area, and it was little prickly bushes and stuff in there. I had to reach in there and pull the ball out. And I knew her team had a corner kick. So I went and got the ball before anyone could get there. I went and got the ball, and I set it down by the corner because they might want to take it quickly. And I just happened to be walking by it, happened to go out, I set the ball down. And the player that went to take the corner just walked up and took the corner. Didn't look at me and say thank you in any way. And I immediately was like, I hope that's not the kid I'm coming to recruit. And when I sat down and realized that was her, actually, I watched her come off the field. She got subbed out. She was an older player. It was a high school game. She made the younger players on the team get off the bench so she could sit on the bench. She came off the field barking at her coach. And I was like, she just told me, I didn't watch much soccer, but I realized it wasn't a player that I wanted to recruit. Players are wearing my logo, they're wearing my badge, their club badge, high school, college, whatever it is. I want you to represent us well. I mean, you can actually, you guys in high school, in situations where you have youth ball girls at the games and stuff, those kids can be nervous sometimes because they don't want to make a mistake. And they think you guys are professionals when they walk around there. If you guys can walk up and look at someone and say thank you and make eye contact with them and say thank you, man, that goes a long way with kids. It goes a long way with coaches and other people, and I know that you're going to represent my team well when you do it. Your behavior off the field, on the bench, I literally saw a girl that I went to recruit. I had to make a decision. I was going to watch a couple players play it here, or I was going to drive about 20 miles out of my way to watch another kid play at a different site. And as I showed up there, she was being subbed out of the game, and it was a type of event they go in and out quite a bit. This girl walked off the field, went down to her bag, grabbed her phone, sat on the bench and started texting. And I was like, I just drove 20 miles out of the way. Now, I thought maybe her sister is pregnant. Maybe she's got a grandparent that isn't well and she wants to check on things. But what happened when her coach walked by, she dropped her phone on the ground, covered it with her feet, and then when her coach went the other way, she picked it up again. And I realized that's not the kind of kid I want to recruit. Kids that are driving in and out of the park. I go and do a lot of camps and clinics. If you're driving in and out of the park and you're cranking music with foul language and stuff like that, it's not going to make me look good on campus here. If I have an athletic director or another coach and comes and says, hey, your team's behaving this way, it doesn't look good for me. So I want to make sure that those things matter, okay? You're walking around with teammates at a showcase, and the language that you're using and the way the things you're talking about are important. I happened to one day, ironically, I was at a showcase. I just happened to get in line behind a recruit. I got in line before I realized it was one of my recruits. And the way she was speaking to her mother, I was like, oh my gosh, if that's the lack of respect she shows for her mom, there's no way in the world I want to coach this kid. Okay? So those things matter. And yeah, you guys noticed that she should look familiar. That's Coach Priscilla there. But yeah, those things matter. Okay? Prospect camps. When you think about ID camps, prospect camps, understand it used to be back in the day, people would go to residential camps and they would spend 5 days there. Sometimes we still have those kind of camps. Team camps could be $125 to $200. If it's a residential overnight camp, those things can be up $300, $400, $500. Okay. A lot of times when you're doing that, you're not being seen much by college coaches. Okay, people are running it. I did a camp at a Division I school a few years ago, and everyone was like, we're going to this school and we're going to do this camp. And they had a D3 coach from a different state as their coach all week, and I never saw coaches from that school interact with those kids. So those kind of camps, you want to make sure you understand where you're going to. Prospect camps are a different story. Those are usually smaller events. They're usually, I've seen them as low as 10, 12 players, and sometimes 25, 30 players. Maybe sometimes at schools they'll get a little bit bigger schools that have bigger staffs. But those are much more likely to be events where the college coach is actually watching you and the players, the coaches from that school. But you're also in a situation where it's just coaches from one school or two schools or three that are seeing you. Sometimes you get outside groups to run kind of combine type events, those one-day events. I've worked some of them, and some of them go over really well, and some of them are not tremendously well put together. So you want to make sure you understand the event you're going to. If you get an email from a coach and you could take your name out and put anyone's name in there and the email still makes sense, that's a large camp where they just want you to come and pay your money, and they're trying to make fundraising money. Sometimes people pay for their assistance through the camp structure that they have. If you get something and someone is saying, hey, I really like the way you played last weekend, I'm looking for a player that takes players on 1v1 in that situation, that part of the field, that's directly to you. That's someone that is very interested in you coming to that event. So make sure you understand the type of event that you're going to before you spend that kind of money. I highly suggest you make that list of schools you're looking at before you start paying $200, $300, $400 for camps. Okay? When you're making a visit to a school, I want you to ask questions. When you show up there and that coach looks at you and says, hey, do you have any questions? You should have questions. Okay? It shows that you're interested. It shows that you're taking care of yourself and looking out for the things that you think are important. I think it's really important to do overnights and visits where you can watch a team train or watch a team play. Just understand you need to be safe. When you go and have an overnight at a college campus, you're on a college campus. It's a different setting than your high school. Make sure that your phone is fully charged. Make sure that you're not doing anything that you feel uncomfortable about. I've heard stories from all kinds of different schools. Kids I've coached in the past going off to totally different places, and they say the first thing we did when I got there, went to the bars. First thing we did, went to parties. Okay? Sometimes athletes like that in those situations, they want to show you a good time. Or sometimes there's just stuff going on and they want to go to that stuff. I heard a story one time of a kid that showed up at a school and the players that were hosting her for that weekend just decided to make her the designated driver so they could all drink. Imagine that scenario going into a visit. If you are ever in a situation where you feel uncomfortable, you need to call your parents right away. You should have that coach's number and say, hey, I'm very uncomfortable with where I am right now. I actually, years and years ago during the process, was supposed to have an overnight, and one of the ways the coaches described what was going on that evening was like, I don't want anything to do with this, and I canceled it. So you should do the same. You should be safe. Anytime you feel uncomfortable, you shouldn't be drinking. You shouldn't be accepting drinks from people. You shouldn't be drinking at all. Just make sure you're in a safe situation, right? It's great. If you could go and have an overnight where you watch a Friday training session, have the overnight and watch a game on Saturday, you're going to learn everything you need to learn. If you have the ability to schedule and you can find a day where they're playing a team they tied 1-1 last year, go to that game. If you had the choice between that and a team they beat 7-0 the year before, go to the 1v1 game. 7-0 is going to be fun, just like I said, as you as recruits. It's going to look fun and look easy, but when it's 1-1, you're going to find everyone's true colors at that point. Okay. When you're talking about video, video is getting easier and easier to make. You guys are having access now to your club's video and that type of stuff, and the ability to make highlights and download full games and highlights. It's getting much easier. Okay. So before you have that process, I want you to consider a couple things. What do you do well? Right. What are the 2 or 3 things, 3 or 4 things that you do well? And that's what I want you to highlight in that video. And I want you to group those clips. If you have attribute A and B and C and D, it shouldn't be a highlight of A and then C and then 2 Bs and a D and then a D and then a B and then a C and an A. I want you to group all those attribute A things together so coaches don't think it's random and they see that pattern and they realize this is something you do well. If you win the ball well in the air and you have a header as your first clip and your 7th clip and the 11th and 12th clip and then the 20th clip, I may not even realize that that's something you do consistently. But you put those 4 or 5 clips together, and I start to see a pattern for me. Okay. I want you to think about how you got there. This is a video. This is a clip from a video that I made a few years ago for one of our players on our 18s, and this ball goes into one of her teammates before it comes to her, and the clip started well before that. And I don't want her she scores here. I don't want to just have her receive the ball, turn, shoot, and score. Coaches want to see how you got to where you were. How did you move? Were you playing in between the lines? Were you playing on a player's back shoulder? And what was the timing of your run to the ball? And how do you check the ball? And what do you do when you're off the ball? So that's really important that they see how you got there. I like to go, if you're in a clip, I might go 5 or 10 seconds before you actually receive the ball, and I'll circle you right away. So as a coach, I know who I'm watching. And I might go for a few seconds after. If you score a goal that is a very meaningful goal, you're playing your high school rival and you scored a goal and everyone goes insane and swarms you, I'm putting the celebration on there too, okay? Because I want that coach to feel that same energy, that I didn't just score the 4th goal on a 5-0 win. I scored an important goal, or I made a huge save, or I cleared one off the line at a really important time. It's great to make a clip that you can put on YouTube, make it 3 or 4 minutes long or so, and send a link to that coach and say, here's how you can find my video. Okay. If you guys jump online right now, you could probably hit prospect soccer video and just find random people's videos and get an idea of what you like and what you don't. Okay. Let me see what I put on. Some people say, do they want a full game? Do they want highlights? Do they want training? And again, 1,200 women soccer coaches across the country. Everybody wants something different. I would have access to a full game. You have that stuff on our camera now. Have access to a full game that you can send, but also have a set of clips that you can put together. Okay. Some people want to see the entire field, but sometimes when I see the whole field, if I can't pick out who is you, it's difficult to watch. So some people want a really tight view, so I know who it is, but then I can't see your movement. Okay. So make sure that you're creating scenarios where you can put any of those kind of things together for a coach that might want to see it. I like the sound, but if someone is sitting next to the person filming and they're yelling and cursing and complaining and telling you to shoot every time you cross midfield, I probably don't want that on there. Okay. Sometimes I think music is interesting. I'm at a point now where people choose certain music and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I love that song. Sometimes they put stuff on there and it's very distracting. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit of a personal preference. Just make sure it's not inappropriate and not foul language and that kind of stuff. And make sure it's something that's adding to the video and not distracting from it. Okay. What are some of those questions that you guys had? That was fast. I flew through that. Holy cow. What are some of the questions you guys have?
I think you kind of answered mine because my question was like, what should I put in like highlight reels or videos?
Just make sure. So like I always say, not that you're a goalkeeper obviously, but like goalkeepers, it's sometimes better to put a training session because I may have a game where I don't have much to do. In fact, on that side note, the best time for goalkeepers in recruiting a lot of times is their warm-up before a game. I know a player who was given a Division I scholarship offer because of her warm-up before a game at a showcase. Sometimes they just don't have much to do. And the same is kind of true sometimes for field players. If I can get small, the training video now is getting better and better because everyone's starting to film training sessions now and put online. If you can have a small rondo going on and you're playing really quick 1 and 2 touch, that might be a clip that I would put in there too. So, like I said, take access to any of those things, those 3 or 4 attributes that you decide you have. If yours is like quick 1 and 2 touch play and some of that video came out of training and you in a rondo, I would put it in there too.
Okay.
Make sure that your video is showing the things you do well.
Okay.
Okay. What else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I'm registering onto like sites before like showcases, it asks what colleges I'm interested in. If I don't know, would it like hinder me if I told them I didn't know? Like, do you think they'd not be interested?
I'm going to be honest with you. When you fill that stuff out, I get profile books, okay?
Okay.
And I'm looking, when I go, more often than not, I know who I'm watching when I go. Sometimes I have a period of time where none of my recruits are playing in the 3:30 game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll find a game that are kids from my region in the area that would be. I'm not going to go watch a team from Arizona play because they're not likely to visit my school, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I might go watch, but I don't want to watch teams from this close to school because I see them all the time. So maybe I'll watch a team from Indiana against a team from Michigan, or I'll watch a team from Kentucky against a team from Pittsburgh or something like that. So when I go there, I'll watch that stuff, and then while I'm watching, I might find a player that I like. Now, this is rare because normally I'm going to watch a specific player. So let's say I find that player. I go in the profile book and I look up, oh, she's a senior. Oh, she's got a great GPA. Oh, it says right here she wants to study one of our big 3. That's awesome. I don't even know where to go to look if you ever put down that you were looking at certain schools.
Okay,
I would
because it
never
made
even
me
say it.
nervous to pick one. So I was like, what if nobody watches me because I picked a bad school?
Honestly, I never see it. In all these years, I've never seen someone that put that down there. Some of those sites now are creating profiles for you, and if you click on a school, they're making sure that school gets that information.
Okay.
It's probably not doing anything for you at a showcase, to be
Okay.
honest. I don't even see it.
I don't know. I just got so scared. I was like, oh my God.
I would honestly, I probably wouldn't put it on there. It's easier for you to send an email to the schools you are interested in later, instead of if someone did come across it and they're looking at my rival and not me. They're like, they live here and they're looking at that school, but they got to drive past my school to get there. Like, I've seen people go like, why? What the heck? I just wouldn't even choose a school.
Okay.
Okay. So, what else? Do you have questions?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
So like D1, D2,
NAIA.
NAIA. How do I decide which one is best fit for me?
Well, when you go into those kind of sources and say, what are the schools that have the things I want to study and the settings I want and the price range I want, my distance from home, and you create a list, I would start from there. I wouldn't worry about it's a D1 school, D2, NAIA, D3, as much as I would look for the schools that would fit me best for my education, okay, and for where I want to be. Sometimes people have goals. I want to play Division I, okay. When you look at football and basketball and stuff, they're size dependent. sports. D1 schools in football are going to destroy D2 schools and so on and on. Soccer is not necessarily like that. I actually know a lot of Division III teams that sometimes scheduling goes difficult and they need a game, and they'll play a Division I team and compete with them. I know D3 teams that have beaten D1 teams. The top Division I schools are separated. But the rest of Division I overlaps with Division II in ability. D2 and D3 overlap quite a bit, and there are some D3 teams that I would put against smaller D1 teams, okay? So I wouldn't worry too much about that. If you have a goal, I want to play Division I soccer, then look for those kind of schools, okay? NAIA is in many ways probably very comparable to Division II NCAA schools. Very similar in the way they are, it's similar schools. In a lot of cases, it's not, there's a lot of schools, so it's not perfect. But that's probably a great way to look at it. There's like D1, D2 and NAIA, and D3. Okay, but again, that overlap exists. So I wouldn't necessarily say which are the ones I should look at, but which are the ones that have what you want, and then start looking at them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. What else?
I have a question. So, how early, like, do you recommend to email out when you're going to a showcase, like, how many days or whatever?
Again, every coach is a little different. Some coaches, the second those schedules come out, they want information and they're very right on top of things. I've had situations where I'm going to a Friday, Saturday, Sunday showcase, and I arrive in town on Thursday night. We had practice, and I had to drive 2 or 3 hours, and then I start working on my schedule then. And I kick myself for doing that because I can spend 2-3 hours easily making the schedule because I need to go to field 1 at 1 o'clock, and I need to go to halfway through that game. I need to leave and go to field 7. Sometimes I'll go to field 9 because they actually have 2 recruits playing against each other. So I need to see that game, but I can only be there for half a game because I need to get to a different field. So it can be really difficult to coordinate all that stuff, and then weather comes in and things change in the games. That makes it really difficult. So because of that, people want more time. So if you're going to make a mistake, I would make the mistake on the too early. But you send that out. Say you're at a showcase that's great about it, and they're 3 weeks ahead of time. They have a schedule out, which is kind of rare. And you send something out 3 weeks ahead of time. If you haven't heard back from anyone, I would maybe 3 or 4 days ahead just say, hey, I want to make sure you saw this, and I would send that out too. I have gotten stuff because now my typical is a day or 2 before that event. I take the time to sit down and make my schedule. Once I make my schedule to watch 24, 25 kids, you send me an email then, I'm like, I can't do it. So unless it's a huge recruit for me or someone I'm really trying to see, or, hey, I didn't know I was going to play, but this team asked me to guest play, so I'm going to show up, I'm honestly just like, I can't do it. It's too much. So don't wait too long. I have gotten schedules from kids on a Friday, Saturday showcase, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they'll send me something Friday night after they've already played a game. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. There's no way I can fit you on the schedule. So if you're going to err on one side, I would go on the early side. If you're going really early, 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, I would follow up about 2 or 3 days ahead and just say, I just want to make sure you saw this. What else?
I have another question. What do you recommend doing if we wanted to go to a school like out of state, like really far from Ohio? Would the recruitment process look really different?
Again,
Because it would be really hard for them to see showcases.
well, every school's a little different. Okay. You guys went to Gatlinburg, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you know you're going to be in that area, make sure those schools know. I'm going to be in this area at that time. If it's an area that is far from you ever actually being somewhere, then make sure you have access to your video. And if they are following up and, hey, we are looking for kids in your grade, and we have players from a very similar level here in our program, then you might have to be ready to make a trip and go to an ID camp and see if they have events coming up. So if you can get to an ID camp, that would be really, really helpful because it might be the only chance they actually get to see you play live
Okay.
at least. Yeah, if you're going further away, just be ready to spend some money.
I don't even know if I want to. I have no idea where I'm going.
So you gotta Hawaii or something.
Same.
Yeah, I could be asking all these questions and I end up like in Ohio. Like,
Well, somebody's listening, yeah.
you never
Yeah.
know.
I can tell you my experience over the years when I talk to kids who are freshmen and sophomores in clubs and things, they're like, I want to go far away. And then juniors, they're like, I don't know if I want to go that far away. And then seniors, they end up in school 20 minutes from their home. So that
Yeah.
happens. It tends to happen. So. What else?
High school soccer, do colleges, are they going to go to a high school game over a college showcase? Or are they going to
So we play in the
a
same
club
season.
game?
So it's difficult. So when I'm in I know some college coaches are like, I never go to high school games. This just because they're so busy. Some college coaches have young families. Like I'm rarely home, so I want to make sure I get home some nights. Some college coaches have different scenarios. I can tell you, for me personally, I go to local games. If I look on a schedule and a team really close to me is playing a team from Cincinnati and that team's coming up, I'm probably going to that game because otherwise I'm not going to see that team. At the end of a season, when you start to get into tournaments, I have run a practice here I'll bump it a little earlier and go 4 to 5:30, and then I get in my car and make an hour and a half trip somewhere to watch someone play because it's the only chance I'm going to see them. But that's even pretty rare. It is during that season, and it's tough. Some people will say, I only watch club soccer, and people say, I think club soccer is more important than high school, and some people say, hey, you shouldn't play high school. I actually think it's really important that you play for your school. There's something playing for your school and hearing stuff about it on the announcements of school and wearing your school colors and playing with your friends and stuff. I think that's hugely important. If you're a kid that could play at the top D1 schools and you have an opportunity to play at a different level in club, maybe. Other than that, I think it's important that you play for your high school, but just understand that you're likely only going to see some of the local college coaches, or maybe when you make a trip that you go to the Cincinnati school, you might see some of them, right? So, but I always say share your schedules. I might have a Saturday where I'm not playing, and I really want to see you play, and it's 2 hours from where my school is. It's not mine, obviously, but I'll make that trip on that day. So share the schedules. It's just easier to see people in club and showcases when all the teams are the same. How many high schools have high school showcases? They have those like early summer things, but most people don't even have numbers on their shirts. I don't know who's who. People are using 30 people in a game. So, but a high school game and a club showcase, probably just going to go to the club showcase more because it's out of season for the team. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. What else? You guys have awesome questions.
Okay, so for Otterbein at least, what would you say is like a normal week in the life during the season?
Week in the life. So let's do this. I don't want to talk about Otterbein. Technically, when I do these things, I can't talk about my school. Okay. But let's talk about a D3 thing. You want to answer that question? We're going to go to Coach Kenzie because she was a D3 athlete.
Can. So, like, you're talking about like training-wise or school or just all of it?
Just all of it.
Okay, so classes are kind of nice because you're not in class from like 8 to 3 every day. I might have like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I have 3 classes. Tuesday, Thursday, I have 1 or 2, something like that. So I'll have time, like maybe I get up for my 9 o'clock class, we have a break, I go eat lunch either by myself or I'll go eat with my teammates or something. Then I have another class maybe. And then we would train usually around like 4:15 to like 5:45 that time. Sometimes like just with the schedule of the turf, maybe we bump practice a little bit later that day. We would typically, like we'd have games Wednesdays and Saturdays. So Monday is usually like our most like intense training session. We would take Tuesdays a little bit lighter because it's the day before a game. Play Wednesday. Thursdays are like a recovery day. Fridays is another day before a game, so a little bit lighter. And then Saturday we play and we take Sunday off. So I can go into more detail if you want, but that's kind of the basics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question going off of that. Do you have like lifting sessions or like kind of like off like practice, like fitness sessions kind of more of?
So like in my experience, like in the fall, we like just do kind of the training session like schedule that I described. In the winter, like we'll typically take our season, depending on how well we do, maybe ends like mid-November. We'll take time off until January. And then like January, February, we'll have like open workouts. So these are open to anyone on campus. Usually ends up that mostly it's just girls from our team that will come, but they'd have to be like open to anyone on campus, any female on campus. So we might have winter workouts. You know, for 6 weeks, we'll go like twice a week just in the weight room. That is a good chance for us to lift. And then come spring, then we have kind of our like non-traditional season. So like we just finished that because we have to be done like a week ahead of finals. So we'll go usually like for 5 weeks, like 3 times a week, and we'll train back out on the turf again.
Okay.
And you'll take like Division I schools different, D2's different. Division I schedule's typically kind of Wednesday, Saturday, sometimes Tuesday, Saturday. Division I schedules could be Friday, Sunday for games. So what you'll get is you'll play Friday, kind of recover and get ready on Saturday for your Sunday game, play Sunday and travel back. Sometimes you're traveling Thursday, playing Friday, resting Saturday, playing Sunday, and take Monday off. And then Tuesday's a huge day for weights because you don't play again until Friday. So D1 and D2 schools that have those similar schedules will sometimes hit the weights really hard on Tuesday. Because we're kind of Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, we never have a point where we're more than 2 days before or after a game. So we can't do a ton with the weights. When we do things with weights, it's usually in recovery sessions, and it's light weights and high repetitions and aerobic type things. It's strengthening the muscles around your knees and your ankles to keep you safe from injuries and strengthening your core and your back muscles. But it's never the heavy stuff that D1 and D2 schools will get into sometimes. So that's a good question. What else?
More broader than like soccer, but is it better to apply to a ton of colleges or just like a few colleges?
Well, now we're into like an era where we have common apps and things like that. The ability to apply, or the cost of applying to a bunch of schools isn't like it was a few years ago. It's a little bit easier now, and that's a really personal preference. I know people who were like, I know I'm going to get in here. And people are in different situations too with getting into schools, right? Some people are like, I know I'm going to get in here. I want to go to one of these 2 or 3 schools, so I'm just going to apply there. Other people are like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Some people apply to a few schools, but they're on that borderline of whether or not they might get in, right? So they might apply to a few more schools, hoping to get into one of those big schools. Some people are like, I want to get into these massive schools. So you might apply to more. So it's a really kind of a personal preference, again, when you get into that kind of thing and what you're going to do in the end. So, wish I could tell you 7 schools.
Yeah.
Do 7. So, anything else? You guys have got great questions.
I have one more question that you
Yeah.
kind of answered. What do you look for when you go to showcases more on like the playing style? Because you talked about like having a good attitude.
Yeah.
But, like, what do you look for? Like,
That's a great question. And again, every coach is going to be a little different. I can tell you what I look for and what coaches similar to me and what we talk about. I sometimes have very limited time at a field. Okay. So for me, a player's first touch tells me a ton. So if you have a good first touch, I know that technically you're solid, right? If you have a bad first touch, it already tells me that's going to be. Now, you might have a bad first touch, but over the course of you receiving the ball 5, 6, 7 times, that was a bad one, right? So I see that you got a good first touch. That's good. If you have a good first touch that takes you away from pressure, then I know that you're not only capable and technically sound, but I know that you're aware of the space around you. So you've got pressure on your left, your first touch takes you to the right. So now you've told me that you're aware of what you're going to do with the ball before you get it. Okay. Maybe you have a good first touch, takes you away from pressure, and it prepares you for the next ball you're going to play. So I know the ball is coming to me from the left, and I want to play it to the right. So it comes across my body. I also go away from pressure, and I'm going to switch it to the field that's open over there. And that first touch prepared me for the ball I want to play to the other side. That tells me you've got a view of the larger field, and you know what you're going to do with it before you get it. So when I see a kid let a ball go across their body, pushes it out from her feet with a little bit of backspin, and then plays the next ball a 40-yard pass to someone that switched the point of attack, brilliant. When I see someone in their first touch hits them in the face, it's like, So everyone is going to kind of fall in between there at some point, okay? And then I'm looking for certain things. There are certain things I like tactically, certain things that I like in players technically, and I'm looking for those very specific things. And I can tell you this, I can't tell you what every coach is going to look for, but some people want you're in a 1v1 situation, some people want you to do this, some people want you to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you might say, I love this school, and I visit it, it's beautiful, and it's close to where I want to be, but soccer's super important to me. And you're consistently doing the thing tactically they don't like, and they say we're no longer interested. That is not a bad thing. People be like, I ruined it, I did it. No, you did. You didn't ruin it. You actually just saved yourself, because the worst thing you want to do is end up somewhere that doesn't like the way you're doing this or that, and then find out in the middle of your freshman year that it's just not going to work. So a lot of times people think, I'm going to blow it today, or I'm going to make a mistake. If a school decides they don't like you and they tell you that before you decide to go there, I promise you, as hard as it might feel in that moment, it's a good thing. It really is, okay? Because you're going to find the program that's right for you, and you're going to make the best friends in your life, and you're going to have a tremendous experience. So I don't like it when I hear kids like, oh, this coach is coming to watch me today, and I understand it. I get that we want it to work out. But if it doesn't, I promise you it's not a bad thing. Okay. maybe ask some coaches too. If you know a certain coach is coming to watch you play, ask them what they're looking for. Okay. What else? Anything else? Amazing. I appreciate you guys having questions and asking them, and I appreciate you guys sticking around as long as you did. I know it's been a long evening for you, so I greatly appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
So much.
All right,
good.
get out of here.